feel alone and caring, that's really discouraging. Yeah. And I think if you look at things in the country as a whole, it can feel really discouraging. And this place is, yes, we can criticize it for being this liberal bubble, and thank God, like, this is a safe haven in a lot of ways for me.
That was Lily Sloane, the creator, producer, and host of the podcast A Therapist Walks Into a Bar. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Every week on this podcast, we feature therapists, bartenders, lawyers, photographers, and other San Franciscans talking about living, working, and doing their thing here. It's a way to get to know your neighbors. Welcome to episode 38, part 2. In part 1, Lily talked about the transformation and awakening that led to her calling San Francisco home. In this podcast, she'll tell the story of how she got started doing her podcast and what it means to her. The episode of A Therapist Walks Into a Bar that Lily mentions putting together, with the theme of our personal pasts, is out now, by the way. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Here's Lily.
Yeah, so community is a huge part of the story behind my podcast, A Therapist Walks Into a Bar, which we are currently in a bar where I have recorded stuff before.
Oh.
I love this space. And yeah, my favorite place to record for my podcast is to come to like a backyard kind of area in a bar, because I'm not really going for crazy loud shots, drinking, sports watching. Yeah. I'm going for, where are people hanging out? And where are they hanging out with their friends? Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit to tell this story. So as a therapist, one of the challenges that I was noticing was misconceptions from the public about therapy. Or maybe they weren't misconceptions. Maybe they were bad experiences people had that were real and just not what therapy has to be across the board. And there were a lot of people in my life, though, who weren't therapists, who were curious, but they were always kind of teetering on that edge of, I want to try it, but it would take them forever. And sometimes they eventually went after hanging out with me and becoming friends with me, and maybe I'd give them a name of somebody, and that helped make it more comfortable for them.
Right.
But I think that what was missing is this kind of, what we call psychoeducation, which is people having education about, the process of change, or about their own psychology, or around how therapy works. So just anything that's kind of educational component to the work. And another big part was that people didn't know how to find a therapist, or didn't know that therapy could be accessible, or that therapists were accessible as human beings. And so I wanted to do, and I'm also very extroverted, and so just being in my therapy office didn't quite fulfill me enough on its own. And so I wanted to do something that would kind of bring things out into the street. And so with another person who runs a therapy center downtown, Psyched in San Francisco, the founder of that, Tracy Rubel, and I decided to do a one-time project called Sidewalk Talk. And what we did was we got a bunch of trained listeners, mostly therapists, but not all, during Mental Health Awareness Week, there was one day we had 12 locations all over the city out on the sidewalk with a couple of listeners with T-shirts on and folding chairs. And they sat on the street inviting passersby to sit down and just talk and be listened to. It's not therapy. It's just listening.
And it's not recorded.
Nope.
It's just
that
and weird thing where two people talk to each other.
Yeah,
That's
where one person shares their feelings and the other person just listens and reflects back maybe what they're hearing.
So strange.
Really strange. And people don't, it is. Like, people don't get that experience very often in their lives, in their job or in their marriage or, in their friend group. It's something that people are really lacking. And while therapy is more than just listening, sometimes that's like the place that people get that. And so we weren't charging any money. We weren't telling anyone what to do with their lives. We were just listening, and we were doing that kind of as a public art piece in a way. And it was also about raising awareness about therapy. Like if people wanted resources, we had a list of resources to give them. And that was a super powerful experience that kind of snowballed. Somebody in LA decided to work with us to start up the project there. It ended up being an ongoing thing that was happening weekly and throughout the city and started to spread into other communities.
When did this start?
So the first time we did it was May of 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. And so eventually I was like, I would just sign up to do this one-time thing, and it's cool that like now there's chapters opening and that it's happened in Canada, and it's like that was so amazing. We got a lot of really great press coverage. People were really surprised this actually resonated with people, and I'm so proud of the work that we did for that. And Tracy kept it going, and I knew that there was something else missing for me, and I think that was the art piece. And I at the time was really, really into podcasts. I think for me it was like the kinds of shows I was listening to, like Radiolab, were giving me so much insight into all kinds of random stuff, whether it was science or, you know, social science or whatever, or history, while also through sound design and narrative was really making it so human. And I'd be listening to something about like some biological organism and be crying.
Right.
I'm like, how do you do this to me every time, Radiolab?
Right.
And I was already a musician. I already, you know, had some recording equipment and just experience. And I just realized that if there was a medium where I was going to try to continue to connect in the community and bring concepts of personal growth and therapy out into the world, and also through a way of just being my real authentic self, that a podcast was actually a really, really great medium for that, where I could do everything. I could make music, I could tell stories, I could share stuff about myself, I could connect with strangers. And so it kind of came to me in, I think, November of 2015. It suddenly, like, the name came to me. I'm like, oh, a therapist walks into a bar. And the name kind of became the thing that delivered the format. I was like, okay, so I need to go talk to strangers in bars, because if they aren't coming to my office, like, where are they? They're at the bar. They're, you know, they might be talking to their friends.
Wait a second. There's something missing there. Did you already go to bars at this time, or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think, okay, yeah, let me re-explain that.
Because I do you like jokes?
Well, so I like
it's a
jokes.
Great first line of a joke.
So I like jokes, and I knew that there would be an element of humor to what I was doing, though it's not a comedy podcast, and it's definitely like dark, but my humor comes through in it too.
Right.
But I mean, I shouldn't say it's definitely dark. It's sometimes dark and heavy, and there's usually a mix of things in each episode. But I think because I like jokes, so I was like, oh, that's kind of a clever name. Like, what would that even look like? You know, a therapist walking into a bar. But then the other piece is that in the whole world of therapy, you know, we talk about meeting people where they're at. So you can't make somebody change faster than they're able to, or we can't think that they should be someplace where they aren't, you know, psychologically. Right. But I decided to take that literally and be like, well, they're not coming to me. Maybe, like, where are they? Where are they at? And, you know, people gather for community at bars. People also, you know, go to bars to sort of numb. And
bartenders serve a similar role.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like a place where a lot of things are happening. And I don't think alcohol for consumption, for instance, is all bad or all good. It's like, you know, we're all coping in different ways. You know, it's nice to relax a little and enjoy a conversation with our friends that somehow becomes surprisingly deep, or, you know, like, these things happen too. And so it seemed like an extension to me of that sidewalk talk thing of like, I'm gonna make space for strangers to share things about their lives with me. What's different is that I'm doing it with the end goal of sharing it with other people, and they know that. So, you know, I've just been going in and bringing in topics that come up in therapy a lot and using narrative and I also talk to experts for the show, or I bring in my own expertise. I try to understand, deeper narratives sometimes from other guests that I don't necessarily get in the bar setting. Though sometimes the bar setting is surprising what I'll get, and not because people are drunk. It's more like, oh wow, someone I can finally talk to about this thing. And I'm not doing therapy, I'm just interviewing. I'm trying to learn something about this person. And the process, I end up crying while I'm making these episodes. Because the process gives me this feeling of connection. It gives me so much. And then I get feedback from listeners that they are getting that feeling of connection. So my whole thing of wanting people to feel less alone, wanting people to feel more of a sense of community, even when things are really hard and we can't solve it, is working. I'm getting that outcome from doing this show, and it's so deeply gratifying.
Oh, yeah.
It means so much. It means more than fixing things means.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I tend to be just go on momentum, and I have a hard time. I'm not like someone who thinks it all through, really. I didn't research all the equipment that I should probably have, or take a bunch of storytelling classes or anything. I pretty much just learned as I went. So in my opinion, the first year plus was learning, and I'm still learning, but I feel like I've found more of a style and a groove for the show. Curve. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And in the beginning, I think I was trying to squeeze too much in. There was a lot of editing tricks and sound things that I didn't know yet that I've learned. I also I wasn't confident yet about composing my own music for the show. And I'm so grateful to the people in my life who are awesome musicians that I got to use their stuff. But something that happened, it kind of was a gradual thing last year where I was like, I just need to do all the music. Mostly. Occasionally I can throw something else in, but music is something that is really important to me, that I love sharing with others, and this is a way that I can incorporate that part of myself. And it's a lot of work to do all these parts of the show.
Yes, it is.
And if people want to donate money to my Patreon account, I'd really appreciate it. But so what I've discovered is that I would say maybe a year ago is when it started to dawn on me that I was now an audio producer that was doing therapy also. And that this wasn't just an extension of my therapy work, but this, for me as a person, feels like one of the most authentic ways that I can make a difference. Maybe more so than for me as a person, as a therapist.
Wow.
I think I'm a good therapist, and I think that my clients benefit a lot from our work. But in terms of how I can bring my full self forward, this medium for connection and growth and learning is where I feel like I'm really finding myself. And that could change. Down the road, but I'm feeling so enlivened by it. I had been licensed I'd only been licensed a little over a year. Or I'd been licensed 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd been licensed 2 years, and I'd been practicing probably then for 5 years because of the years where I was getting my hours but was doing the work. Yeah, so now I've been licensed over 3 years. So that's interesting to be am I doing a career change? What's happening here? Because I thought I just started this.
Sounds like you're just going to kind of let it play out.
Yeah, I'm going to let it play out.
Yeah.
I'm committed to my clients and to my practice, but my practice is very small.
Yeah.
I only go in 2 days a week, and that's my main source of income. But as a therapist, I was never able to see enough people. My full was always smaller than a lot of my colleagues, and part of that is because we all have a different capacity for that kind of work. And what I've learned recently is that part of the issue is that I need to express myself so much that I'm restraining a lot as a therapist, and I'm able to do it, but it takes more out of me than it does somebody who likes to kind of sit back and not speak all the time.
Right.
So naturally, things that give me a microphone are kind of a good fit.
So I'm never pressing stop. We'll just run out the batteries here.
Great. This is perfect.
You'll do 5 weeks worth of podcasts.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all I ask. So, well, for the bars, I will say, okay, and I'll have some dread about it because as much as I'm an extrovert, it's also nerve-wracking to walk into a bar and approach strangers and ask them to talk into your microphone. But I'll pick I've gotten better at picking places strategically. And like I said, I've been really enjoying kind of the Sunday afternoon backyard beer garden kind of thing. And actually, some places, some beer gardens have food, so there can be families there. And I've even gotten to interview a child who was in an episode about the unknown, and it was the best interview. It was so good. That day was so amazing because I met her, and she just had so much deep, dope shit to say. And then I met I've also been finding that approaching a group of friends and saying, can I just talk to you all right now, has been really effective. And there was 3 friends there together, and they were like, yeah, let's talk. And one of them had a really she just had a lot to say and had a very intense story that then ended up being not just a side like bar snippet, but like a deeper story as part of the episode. Sometimes the bar stuff is like, okay, here's little bits of people sharing things that you might relate to as like kind of as we transition between moments in this episode, where then I'm going more in depth with somebody that I've met in my life that either is someone I know professionally or somebody who has a really interesting life story that relates to the topic. Yeah. So the last episode, which was called Be Someone Else, starred another therapist, but who also is a drag queen. And that was interesting because he was able to serve both as like an expert guest, but also as the subject of the narrative.
Right.
And that was really fun to do. So I've moved also more away from experts and more towards narrative.
Right.
And that's been an interesting transition because for a long time I felt like I had to be like, and this expert says this and this and this and this. And I realized that's not what people actually, some people maybe, but people seem to learn better, and I learn better through narrative. Like I do most of my reading is fiction.
Right. Experts are great.
They're great.
We love experts.
And we can bring them in, and some experts speak in a way that's very narrative.
Sure. But also, at the end of the day, I want to talk to someone who's living or doing the things that experts are experts about. Yeah.
And I think even when I bring in experts, I like to bring in some of their something personal with them, even if it's just a moment of like them saying something kind of candid and ridiculous and funny. Because I think that where we really connect is around our humanness, and then that space where we're taking in intellectual information is there's opening for that too. But the main purpose of my show is for people to feel connected and less alone.
What's next for A Therapist Walks in the Bar?
Right now, I'm working on an episode that is feeling. So one of the things that's been happening is I think I've slowly been bringing in more and more of myself, and this next episode is kind of vulnerable that way. So I'm struggling to figure out the best way to tell it, but it's really about addressing why we care about the past. Because people will sometimes come to therapy and be like, I don't want to talk about my childhood. Can we just talk about my panic attacks? It's like, well, okay. Yeah. We can treat the symptom, but also, our past informs our present. And it's not about going back and being like, oh, and it's this thing I forgot that my dad did, but more like, how does your life story and your narrative, your own personal narrative, impact you today? And just like we need to study history so we don't repeat it, even though we are, like we need to really, digging can be really useful, not to make shit up, but to actually discover and to feel like you have more choice because you aren't going to just automatically do your default thing. So this episode explores that through my friend Jedediah Baker, who has a podcast called The Jetta Diaries, where him and his childhood friend are going every week. They're going through his diary from when he was 12.
Wow.
And he's
Cool.
discovering amazing stuff about himself, and it's connecting to current day struggles.
Wow.
And then I'm sharing stuff from my own high school diaries, because I have performed in Mortified quite a bit. And I
Okay.
have actually a recording of my performance where I'm, ranting out my teenage diary.
Uh-huh.
But that feels, that's a lot to share. But
Yeah.
I'm also open to it. Yeah. And then a little bit of my niece and nephew talking about, whether they keep diaries and their own relationship to documenting their lives. Yeah. So it's actually something I need to work on today, and I'm overwhelmed by the material.
That's a good thing, though.
It's this part of the
It's a good
process where
overwhelm.
I'm writing a script is where I'm like, I am the worst. This will never happen. I should give up. Maybe I should go to a coding boot camp. Like, maybe I should get in the scooter business. Like,
They're coming back, so sure.
it's just like this part of the artistic process is so hard.
Yeah.
And yet I keep doing it because the outcome and other parts of the process too are really, really gratifying. So it feels worth it. Okay, so the podcast A Therapist Walks Into a Bar is at atherapistwalksintoabar.com, and it's also in all the podcast listening places except Spotify, because they suck.
Music for the podcast is by Joe Begale. Photos for this episode are by Michelle Kilfeather. Please follow Storied San Francisco on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The website is storiedsf.com. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. We really appreciate it. Please email us to let us know how we're doing. The address is storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for listening. Check back next week to hear from educator, trainer, writer, and storyteller Ed Wolf.